Okay, in this video we talk about what logistic regression is, as well as show you how we bring data in from a spreadsheet. So logistic regression is another form where we're going to predict, we're going to build a math model that predicts something, but rather than predicting a variable that's continuous, that can take on any value, including decimals, we're going to be looking at where our output, our y value, is only two choices. So it's categorical. It's like if someone's going to buy a house or not, or get the flu or not, or default on a loan or not. When there's only two choices, you do not want to use regression. You want to use logistic regression. And this picture here is a pretty good example of why. So logistic regression, what you get out of that is a line. That's the blue line. It's based on a linear model. And you can see this particular regression model can get bigger than 1. It can be smaller than 0. It gives you a line. But if your outcome are only two values, you're either 0 or 1, you want your function to behave so that you can't get anything less than 0 or more than 1. So what you wind up getting in a logistic model, it's called the logit, L-O-G-I-T, the logit. This is the formula of this orange line, and you don't really need to know that, but that's the formula that determines what P is. And you can see it's got this S shape, where as it gets X gets farther and farther this way, you get closer and closer to 0, but you never get to 0. And then as X gets closer, gets farther and farther this way, P gets bigger and bigger. But I mean, it gets bigger, but it gets as closer to 1, but it never goes over 1. And the shape of this, sometimes it can do it here, sometimes it could shape there, it depends. So what you generate, the orange line, is generating this value P. How you want to interpret P, it's a probability. So the probability of Y when X is big is way up here, close to 1. The probability of when X is close to 0, when X is this way, smaller, the P is the probability gets close to 0. So you don't want to use a blue line because you can actually get a negative probability or a probability more than 1, which we know is not possible. You can't get a probability that's -2 or a probability that's 4. It's always a probability is always a number between 0 and 1. So you need a math formula that allows this to happen. So that's why we use logistic regression when our outcomes are yes or no's. So here's the data that we're going to bring in to do our problem. What we're interested in is that we're trying to determine the likelihood or the probability that someone is going to buy a house. So we're a realtor. We're trying to figure out if someone's going to buy a house or not. And we've got about 30 or so data points. How many data points we have here? About 36 data points where we know that this particular person, they did not purchase the house. This is how much money they made. This is how old they were. And this is where the house was. This is the area, the zip code. And in this case, we only got two choices of zip codes. We've got some 1s and 0s. But we know how to do categorical variables, dummy variables. We can add as many of these as we want. But that's what we've got. We've got 3 variables that we want to use to predict if someone's going to purchase a house. So the first thing we have to do is get the data out of Excel. And an easy way to do it, you can just copy it. You could grab it, right click, copy, have Jamovi up and running. And you can see I've already done it, but you could go somewhere and do a paste. And just like that, there you go. You've got it, the data, you've copied it in. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it, if you want to do something a little bit different, I'm going to delete these, is that you can, actually I'll just delete all these. You can do a import from some location. And there you go. It gives you notice the file's imported, and just like that, you've got the data. So either way, you can get the data in. You can either do a copy paste or you can do an import. The next video, we'll go over the analysis. Thanks.